Alright guys, welcome back to Nerd Tech for the Nerds. This is Kenneth Rayner, your host, and we are on episode 2, part 3. So, part tray. So what we're going to talk about now is how we got the hours from the form. And so what you have to think about with hours, and I just want to explain it so that you understand it, and when we get into the whole script side of showing you how I calculated and everything, I'm gonna walk through it. But let me just say it did take a lot of Google searching to figure it out and test it out, but I did get it to work, which is really great. So the problem with hours is we could have it work in the sense of just like this, where it sums up the amount of people, and then we could have it to where it sums up the amount of hours. However, that's giving you a false number, because if you go back to the form responses, it says that we had 23 students in attendance and it was 2 contact hours. Well, it's 2 contact hours per student, so you would need to multiply it. So you would think that then you could just do this, where you counted how many students there were and then counted how many hours there were and multiply it together. That's also giving you a false number, meaning what it would do is it would add up this entire column and add up this entire column and multiply those two numbers together. Well, that doesn't give you the same number. So what you need to be able to do is have it to where it multiplies each row at a time and then adds the hours together. And that required a little bit of scripting. So what's really great about Google Forms is that you can actually build in script that you can write, which please note that I did not go to school for computer talk stuff. Obviously, I don't even know what it's called. So I didn't go to school for this. So this was all just Google searching, playing around, testing it out. So what you can do is, if we go up here, there's these tools, and there's a script editor, and what we've done is we've built in a script. So what this is kind of, the analogy would be like, this is weird to think about, but imagine like a person thinking and they're doing stuff, and the script would be like the hamster in the brain turning the wheel. Alright, so the script is kind of what is behind the scenes telling things to do things, and the form normally has a script that is non-touchable because it needs to function the way it needs to function, but you're able to add on scripts to help it function in certain different ways if you need to manipulate it. So what we need it to do is we need for it to I added these columns by just right mouse or clicking here and then adding where is it at? There it is, insert right or left. So I added these myself, and I titled it volunteer total hours and student hours. Then what I need for it to do is whenever a form is submitted, I need it to automatically times or multiply those 2 columns. I need to automatically multiply this column by this column and then put a number there. Alright, so that's what I needed to do, the first step. There's another way of doing this, which I was doing it before, and it just wasn't beneficial because I would forget to do it. So there's another way where you can just put a formula in here saying equals times this column by this column. Well, when you do a new form, this just gets pushed down. It doesn't work. It doesn't function like you would think it would. So you have to do it the way to make it work, to make it automatic, is to do it this way. So let me show you how I did it. So if we go to the scripts editor, so you add a new script, which there's going to show a script here because I have one, but it'll ask you to add one. And here's the script, and I'm just going to go through it explaining the crazy computer talk of what it means. But it says, essentially, this script should function as an evaluation tool. Alright, so it should be an evaluation. So we need to first establish the variables that we're talking about. So variable 1 is, this is a name that I called it, which was stu, or which refers to the amount of students. And this is an evaluation variable. And the values of that are found in column 8. And then how you find what column number is which is and I had to count them, but you don't count the timestamp because that's automatically at it. You start right here. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is how many individuals were in attendance. So that's corresponding to students and teachers. Then the next one is the student hours, and that's column 9. Then the next one is volunteers, the amount of volunteers, that's column 12. Hours is 13. And then the sheet that you're referencing from is, this pretty much says, this is the sheet, we're going to call it sheet, and then you need to open up this sheet using this ID code, which the ID is found right here, right there. And then it says get sheet by name, so we need the actual sheet, which is, which is right here, form responses. And I will say an example of when it really does matter, even a space matters. So for example, this was not working for a good hour and I was racking my brain. Why is it not working? Why is it not working? Well, it's because here there is a space between form and responses, and I didn't have a space between form and responses right here. So really does, that's what I love about a computer. A computer will only do what you tell it to do, and it won't work because of something that you did not tell it exactly what to do. So it's all based on logic kind of stuff. I'm getting kind of nerdy, but anyways. And the next one is we wanted to look at the last row. So it needs to pull the sheet, which this is the sheet, and it needs to get the last row. All right. So to evaluate prices, well, it should be evaluate hours. Sorry, I copied this from, this is the benefit about these kind of things, is I copied it from somebody else's program that was looking at prices. So anyways, what I wanted to do is create a new variable called volunteer value, or vol value, and I wanted to multiply the number of volunteers by the number of their hours. And then I also want to do student value, and I wanted to multiply the student numbers by the student hours. And then I want to grab the sheet that I mentioned up here. I want to get the range of the last row, and I want to put the number, or the number that it comes up with, in column 29, which is this one. And I want to set that, the vol value, which is right there, I want to set that value. So I want to multiply this by this, the volunteer hours by the number of volunteers, and put it there. And the same with the students, and I wanted to put it in column 30 and set the value. Then I saved it. Save, yay, saving. And one other thing I wanted to show when on this is, so this one racked my brain too, but I Googled it again and found out the answer. But I would run this to test it, because you can test your scripts before you do it. Anyways, what it would do is it would say invalid, and it's because you have to set a trigger. So the trigger for this to run on, let's see, current project. The trigger for this to run on is to evaluate from spreadsheet on form submit and save. Okay, and save. So let me show you how that works. So now when I put in a form, so we'll go ahead and fill one out real quick. We'll say it was on the 3rd. It was an education program. It was St. Paul's Catholic Church, and it's a private school, and it was students, and they were about 34, and we saw them for 2 hours, and they were an elementary group, and we had 4 teachers. And we had 4 volunteers that were here for 3 hours. So if we submit it and we go back to our response, we'll notice that it adds another column, and then as you saw, it added this automatically. So then what we do with our hours is we go back to this tab down here, we go to here. Now it's as simple as this, where we were just counting this column based on that criteria, now all we have to do is count column ADAD, which is right here, student hours, and now we just have to sum those that match that criteria, which is pretty simple. And we do the same with the volunteers. So this is just summing the AC column based on the criteria set, and here's your AC column. And so that's essentially how you analyze a form. Now, granted, this is incredibly a technical version of how to analyze a form. There's many different ways. I know a lot of teachers use forms for grading purposes, and that's as simple as just counting who got A, who got B, which I can show you guys an example of that in our next one, or the next podcast, in showing how we analyzed our evaluations. So this is how you can use attendance to collect numbers. And so now when people put in a form, it'll automatically update your number. So now, let's say it's December 31st and you just want to be really ambitious, which you can be now because all your numbers are already there, is you can just go here, or oops, I actually closed it. You go to your performance database, measures database, and just input the numbers that you see. I closed it. Let me go back. That you see here. All right. There is one thing before I do end this, is that I do recommend that you really briefly do some data mining, and that means just going through your responses, which if you want to, I like to view my responses without word wrap because word wrap drives me insane because of all the space that it provides. So I like to review my responses, and you know, just sometimes I'll have people input it twice. So for example, I'll have a volunteer input their program because I train the volunteers on how to do it, and then I'll have an educator input the same program not knowing that the volunteer did it. And so I go back and I just do a quick overview of the data real quick to make sure there's not doubles, and then I look at the numbers. Now there's a lot more kinds of stuff that I do, which pertains to some of the questions that I ask. So for example, sometimes I want to know, like I said, I want to know how many times has Panavidra seen us, or another question that I like to review, and this is another analyzing the data, is seeing which public outreach program is attended the most, or where the distribution lies. Another thing that we collect is, and we report, is all the articles that we submit and get published and things like that. So with that being said, this is the end of analyzing your attendance report form. A three-parter episode, so it was a big one. Thank you guys very much, and stay tuned for more.